Hello and welcome to Back Chat from the Arc at Headingley. Last time we were together, you might remember we were joined by three eminent chairmen from rugby league clubs. Our panel was made up of three wise men. And as every student of Chinese philosophy knows, for every yin, there is a yang. Let's meet today's panel. Garry Schofield, a rugby league legend and 23rd most successful coach of Huddersfield. We've also got Rod Studd, darts commentator and a student of the game of rugby league. And Chris Irvine, who's the correspondent for the Times and the Sunday Times. Gents, we're into the eights, the most exciting time of the year, the marketing men tell us. So Chris Irvine, first of all, excited by what you've seen so far?
So far, no.
No?
No, it wasn't really. I felt there was a kind of flat start to it. Hull never showed up. Warrington never showed up. Maybe they got the Challenge Cup on mind.
That was a good game, though. Warrington says it was entertaining.
It was entertaining. You couldn't fault it for entertainment, but for excellence, it was somewhat lacking. And Saints did their usual thing. They won again at the Halliwell Jones, where they always win. They always win at Warrington. So that kind of maintained that record. But no, I think slowly maybe this competition, but it wasn't the most dynamic of starts.
Okay, Garry?
Yeah, St Helens are going the right way, aren't they? And they're certainly making a threat now for this top four. And also, what I was delighted with after the game, or maybe about 30 seconds before the game ended, was a smile back on Kieran Cunningham's face. He's had a bit of stick, and rightly so, because I guess they weren't playing the smartest of rugby league and they were getting beat. But what he's got now, he's got a settled side, his big game players, and also too, Jordan Turner's brought something different to that side at number 6. So I'm delighted for Kieran. Pressure was on, and I said don't rule out St Helens, certainly making the top four, and who knows for that grand final push. But I guess with supporters, you can't really make them all happy, can you? Because the way the style of play is quite boring. It's not St Helens' way, but Kieran doesn't care less, does he? He's getting the 2 points and he's winning.
Because 7 weeks ago, you'd have given St Helens no chance. No chance of making the top four. And now, you'd possibly have them as favourites for the grand final?
Well, they'll be favourites to reach the semi-final. I mean, they're in the Super 8's final next week. This weekend, this is the Super 8's final, because the structure of the competition creates a system where the most important game is 4th versus 5th, rather than 1st versus 2nd. So 4th v 5th, this is the final. If St Helens win, they virtually eliminate the Catalan Dragons.
Yeah. Well, it's a quarter-final, isn't it? It's a quarter-final.
Yeah, it's the playoff to get to the playoffs, isn't it? But they've had a good run, but that's not to say they couldn't go backwards again. I wouldn't be entirely convinced that St Helens could keep it going over a period of time, really. I don't think they're as good as Warrington, Wigan and Hull, who are still the favourites.
But this has been a season, hasn't it, of clubs, doing well for a few weeks and then going off. I mean, St Helens going into that run were absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
Catalans were absolutely dreadful at the back end of the regular season. Seemed to
well, there isn't an outstanding team, is there? There isn't an outstanding team, which then allows...
Leeds are the outstanding team at the moment.
They forgot to play for the first 23 weeks.
Yeah, we'll be for sure. Let's not try and put any spin on Leeds' performances, because we all know it's been an absolute disaster of a season for the Rhinos.
If you put them in the top 8 now, they would make a real noise.
People would be frightened of them, but quite clearly it's not good enough. They've been pretty ordinary. We're pretty poor, haven't they, over 23 rounds. But you mentioned St Helens there, Rod, though, but you look at the last 2 fixtures, they absolutely battered Wigan and the DW, and I say did a good job of Warrington. So
they could win these qualifiers. They could
quite easily.
Do you get a trophy? What do you get?
Well, they're only 4 points off top spot at the minute, so it's not inconceivable. They might even win the League Leaders' Shield, St Helens.
That's because there isn't an outstanding team, isn't there? There isn't. Hull had a period when they were quite good. Wigan have been unconvincing because they can't score any points, and it's only the defence that's keeping them in it. And Warrington, well, sometimes they produce something brilliant, and then other times they produce some utter dross.
Is it a fault of the teams, or is it a fault of the way of the maybe the structure of these Super 8 as well? And maybe that's, I mean, everybody's saying unless a Championship team comes up into Super League in 2017, following what happened last year, that there'll be a problem with this system. And okay, the RFL are giving the system 3 years.
Do you think they will?
I think they'll give it another year, but I think if you're going to stay with the Super 8s or whatever, then you've got to look at maybe some form of new competition starting there, and maybe have a system of Hull finish top, you get 7 points, second place 6, 4-3 down to Wakefield with no points. Maybe that's a way of starting it. Or do you just throw away the Super 8s and get back to that thing called promotion relegation? Whoever finishes top, wins the Super 8.
Exactly, you've just hit the nail on the head there. Let's go back to some simplicity. Whoever finishes top, you're the champions, and we are going to have a
We've had this before. We've had this before.
But this is not working.
Well,
I don't think it's attractive, to be honest.
Right, well, the team that actually, if you played everybody at home and away once this season, ignoring the fixture for the Magic Weekend, which is obviously a contrived additional fixture, play everyone at home and away, 11 games each, Warrington won the league.
Yeah.
So Warrington,
Warrington
are the champions on that basis.
That's one issue
Warrington would have finished top.
Definitely got with this structure is that why is the League Leaders' Shield not given after the regular season?
Lee Radford's got a big bone of contention with that. I think
and quite right.
I think quite rightly too. You know, the system. Look, we're in the second year. Okay, it's suck it and see still, but is it really working? That's the question.
But you keep coming up with more and more ideas to make it more and more complex. You were just saying having,
I know, devil's advocate,
some sort of coefficient where the square root of the number of points you got in the first match. What?
Yeah, but we as rugby league fans, we're born to gripe. We're born to gripe because in Garry Schofield's lifetime we've had everything, haven't we? We've had a championship which was divided east and west, and then the playoffs towards the end. We've had 2 divisions. We've had 4 up, 4 down. We've had 2 up, 2 down. We've had licensing. We've got this now, and every system that rugby league has ever had has been wrong. So can't we just adopt a system and say it ain't perfect, no system's perfect, let's live with what we've got?
But we're talking, okay, so the marketing speak is every minute matters.
Yeah.
But it's quite palpably obvious in the Super 8s that very few minutes do matter for too many teams, and that is a problem. What have Wakefield and Widnes, in all honesty, got to play for?
Well, what have Castleford got to play for? And yet they went to Hull and they
Castleford have a little bit, and they went and played well. And I think there's a spirit in Castleford that's admirable. I think they're thinking about Castleford rather than the system, and they're a good team, and Darryl Power's a good coach, and I think they're taking it. But for the teams below them, I think there's a problem. And Rod's right. On Friday, Catalan's going to St Helens. And if St Helens win that's Catalan's probably out of the equation as well. Yeah. So your top 4 is probably decided after 2 weeks.
Every league structure has a flaw that at some point in the season you're going to have the potential of a club, 2 clubs, 3 clubs with nothing left to play for.
The only system whereby every minute and every match counts exactly the same and has exactly the same value is playing first past the post. Everyone plays everyone once, home and away. So anything beyond that, you're into systems and contrivance and bits and bats, which then get complex, and you end up with strange things happening. And but that's what you've got. But look, you can't just abandon something after 2 years, can you? Like you say, they'll give it. I'm sure they'll give it at least another year, because you can't just keep. You change to this, which is complex enough, and we all had difficulty explaining it to people, and you start explaining it and they glaze over, but they kind of get it eventually. But if you then change it again every 2 years to something else that's more you're going round and round in circles, aren't you? You've got to give something some chance to work.
Yeah. I mean, is there nothing in this, Gary, that you would say, actually, it's good because of that now?
No, I don't like it. I don't. Simple as that. And as I say, the purpose of it quite clearly is at times, as we've mentioned here, Wakefield, I say Widnes and maybe Castleford, there's nothing to play for, and even now we're getting like a player at Wakefield, Scott Moore, saying, well, give an opportunity now for you kids, this opportunity, because some of the players who need operations, I think Ben Jones-Bishop now has gone for an operation, preparing for next year. The fixtures need some purpose about them, Dave.
Yeah, but even, I mean, he played in that semi-final, didn't he? And shouldn't have played in that semi-final. Danny Kerman played in that semi-final, shouldn't have played in the semi-final.
But that's a different competition.
Yeah, but even what I'm saying is,
it was a win or bust game.
What I'm saying is, even if you had a regular end to a season now, they wouldn't be playing anyway because they're injured.
Oh, if there was threat of relegation, they would do. Ben
Danny Kerman wouldn't know because
I bet he would, because again, even though they've got some juniors who want to come out there and put a marker down that they can play for Steve football week in and week out, they wouldn't be going for operations, they would be playing for desperation.
And at the top of the table, you've got a situation where Tony Smith, after Warrington lost to St Helens, hinted in an interview afterwards, straight after the game, that maybe they could rest players there.
They will do.
Because they know they're going to be in that top 4. They're going to finish in that top 4. Yeah. He's probably got confidence enough in his side to actually get to a grand final from there. So there is an inherent weakness. I'll be wrong as a sport. You're right, Dave. We shouldn't be chopping and changing, but it's incumbent on us to look at it and say, is this working or isn't it working?
They're constantly trying to find an every child wins a prize format to keep every child interested that they might have a chance of winning a prize later and later into the season. That's what the top 4 is meant to do, because half the competition. Got 2/3 of the competition to stay in to start with, 8 out of 12, and then half of the 8 stay in and still get a crack at it. Even if you're the 4th best team, you've only got to win 2 games to win win the championship. And they're trying to get people, keep teams involved for as long as is humanly possible. And I'm not sure this structure does that, but that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And you can contrive to make the last game the most important. That's what they're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
But whether this is the actual optimum way of doing it is a different question.
But what I'm saying is that there is no optimal way of doing it. There is no perfect way of doing it. Because whatever structure you have, there'll always be a complaint. So you could say, for example, Leeds went to Widnes in the second match of the season. Widnes were on fire, absolutely battered them. And Leeds might say, well, we're at a disadvantage because when another club went to them, Widnes had nothing left to play for in a straight home and away fixture.
But funnily enough, the most successful competition in this country is the Football Premier League, and it works very well on a system of first past the post.
And everyone plays everybody once.
And everybody plays, home and away. I don't see what's wrong with that as well. And any contrivance maybe can come in the form of other competitions. We used to have the Premiership, and we used to criticise the Premiership in the old days, old winter days, but it maybe got some value. Maybe
the problem with the Premiership was it was always, I mean, I don't know if you played in one of these, but it was always the week before the Challenge Cup final or the week after the Challenge Cup. I mean, when Wigan beat your Hull team in '85, I think they had to play St Helens on a Wednesday night after playing in the Challenge Cup. So that was the problem with the Premiership playoff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and the problem with the structure, if you make the last couple of games the most important, the semi-finals and final, i.e. they're decisive, if you get all your injuries at that point, you're finished.
Yeah.
The end. Whereas if it is a league structure, if you get a few injuries at any time, you can ride it out over the 22 games that you'll be playing. If you remember the season that St Helens finished top, Bradford won the competition in 2005.
Yeah, was that from third?
Yeah, from third. Yeah. When like Long was injured and Albert was injured, and a raft of players injured, and they lost 2 home games in the playoffs. Boom, boom. They lost to Bradford and Leeds. Bang, went out.
Yeah.
I mean, Saints were the best team, but had injuries at the wrong time, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
So that is a problem.
Yeah. Well, you could also say when Saints won the grand final against Wigan, when Ben Flower got sent on, they were racked with injuries. They were playing without halfbacks. They were playing without halfbacks in that game as well.
But we want everything, don't we? We want that, but we also want the grand final. We can't deny the success of the grand final. It is the best night. It's the best night of the year. It's a fantastic occasion, and there's been some great finals, and better finals have been in Challenge Cup finals. So you want that. We also want a good league structure at the same time. It's finding that happy medium at the moment. I'm not sure quite that we've got it, but Rod's right. You've got to give it another year. Nigel would have said it's a 3-year thing, but it wouldn't surprise me if it gets revisited again.
Yeah.
I thought licensing in its way, if it had been run properly, if it had been operated properly, and it had been operated fairly, then maybe that was the right way. But it turned out it wasn't run very well at all.
Yeah. What would you do? What would you do if you were in charge now? What would you? I mean, heaven help us if you were in charge. But if you were in charge, what would you do?
I'd just go back to the simplicity. Whoever finishes top and relegation. That's me.
Yeah. Relegation. What? 2 up, 2 down.
Yeah, 2 up, 2
automatic?
down. Yeah, automatic. 2 up, 2 down. And if we want to, because really, as we all know, with the grand final, it's just a jump to a playoff system. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And then I say for mine, simplicity, as Rod said there, play each other home and away. Whoever finishes top, you're the 2 champions, and relegation, 2 up, 2 down.
And any test of the championship clubs coming up? Because if we'd had 2 up, 2 down this year, we'd have had Lee, we'd have had London. And is their ground fit for purpose yet? I mean,
that's a different question.
Would you have a test?
Just to go back to that, it's right. If you imagine if you'd said to Claudio Ranieri, Claudio, after 38 matches, home and away, you've beaten Manchester United and Manchester City over the whole season.
And won by 7 points as well.
Won 10 points. Right, that now gives you a home game against Manchester City. Crack on, Claudio, and if you lose that game, you get nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they look at you like you have 3 heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
9 months of blood, sweat and tears for Leicester City to do the most remarkable thing you've ever seen in the history of professional sport, and it earns them a home game against Man City, which they'd be favourites to probably lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, right.
So I think we're all in agreement that the League Leaders Shield needs to be a better value, revalued, and it needs to be awarded after the regular season, after 23 rounds or 25 rounds.
In which case, Hull would have won a trophy.
Yeah, yeah.
Or look, I mean, there's always this thing about too many games as well. You know, they've played 23, they're going to play another 30, 32, all the Challenge Cup. You know, the top English players are going to be playing the thick end of 40 games.
Well, the top English players are all playing in the NRL, so they don't have to worry about that.
Very good, all right. Well, the top English players in the NRL are going to be playing a lot less, fewer, than the top English players in the Super League, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you've got that to throw into the mix as well. Then you wonder why they're all absolutely out on their feet by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Trying to beat Australia.
Yeah, but then clubs need to pay their way. You reduce the number of games, you reduce the amount of income.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
But if we created a strong commercial product, which we haven't, then you wouldn't have that problem. And that's it. Super League is not, unfortunately, a competition that's attracting major amounts of money and commercial sponsors. It isn't. It really isn't. And that is part of the problem. We have not grown the brand of Super League. It remains as it is. You know, in sport terms, it's perceived nationally as a minority sport. Sad to say. And it's not attractive. Doesn't attract many column inches these days. Media interest seems to be diminishing. That has a knock-on effect in commercial sponsorship that would have actually, you know, allowed us to flourish and maybe have fewer games. You know, that's where the competition is at the moment. We have to keep playing, flogging players and losing at the international stage.
Yeah. It's all very optimistic. I'm really uplifted by this. You know, we've only had one round of the eights, and already you're writing it all off. What about Leeds? What about Leeds, Gary?
Well, it's pretty obvious that the quality of what they've got, all internationals at Featherstone on there, and the conditions were ideal. And I say Featherstone competed for 40 minutes, but apart from that, class, quality, speed, size, all just came to fruition. And at the end of the day, Leeds, if they wanted to really play how they could have played, as they have been doing over the last 4 or 5 weeks, they could have maybe got 1,800 points. But satisfaction, job done, and getting ready for the Luckinson Rovers this week. But
if they carry on like that, they're going to romp. If they carry on playing like that and don't regress back to what they were doing in the season, they're going to romp through that.
Well, they've got all the players back now.
Well, Rod, that's not going to happen because
any outcome is possible.
But the way that, you know, Seguiaro's sitting there, they've needed the hooker all season. Why it took so long, but as I say, they're going to absolutely wallop this. They're going to go seven unbeaten, and I say, but let's not put any spin on Leeds season. It's been absolutely rubbish, and as I say, the way that at times they played this season, not good enough. But they'll take some, I guess. The
relegation thing. If it'd been two down
that last weekend,
there would have been squeaky season.
And I tell you, but you talk about
2 games.
But how much interest would there have been in that relegation battle? How much interest would there have been?
But would that have been good for the game?
Of course it would.
If Leeds had gone down and London had come up, would that have been good for the game?
Well, I'm talking about the relegation battle here, and if they would have, well, unfortunately, if you're not good enough after the 23 games, you pay the price. It's relegation.
But they're going to get replaced. They would be replaced, and they've not played London yet. But you know, I mean, say Featherstone had finished second and they weren't fouled, they'd have gone up, and clearly outfit for purpose, given the fact that Leeds absolutely.
But that suggests there isn't a safety net, but there is a safety net, and the safety net is the qualifiers. So maybe if the pressure had been on Leeds, maybe they would have responded to that situation. Yeah. But if they finished bottom, and if we were in that old situation of one up or they would have gone, and that would have been
just
it.
Like Man City went down and Leeds United went down and Man United back in the day Wigan went down. Yeah.
Wow. Chris has just mentioned the word safety net, and Rod's got really excited because he loves the idea of nets, especially behind goalposts. We're back with more in just a few moments' time. Welcome back to part 2 of Back Chat from the Arc at Headingley. Our panel this week, Garry Schofield, Chris Irvine and Rod Studd. Rod, we'll start with you in this second part. We're touching on the eights, talking about the eights in the first part. What about Huddersfield? Because they find themselves in that ignominious position of being in the middle eights. Defeat against Salford first weekend. Really good performance by Salford, by the way. Are they under pressure now, Huddersfield? Are they the Super League side under pressure?
That's it, that's the end.
Is it?
That's the end. One match form, they've lost a game. They've lost a match, that's it, finished. Don't even want to turn up for the...
One side, one Super League team is going to end up in the £1 million game.
Yeah, no.
Are they now the side that's on the greatest... They've got to play Hull KR in the last game.
They've lost one match in this competition.
Yeah.
There's another 6.
Yeah.
There's 4 teams that have lost one match, by the way, as well, and 4 that have won. So, you know...
But they're the only Super League team.
Yeah, they are, yeah. But they played another Super League side, didn't they? You know, away from home. Look, the likelihood... The worst case scenario, basically, is that they're going to end up playing in a £1 million game. That's the worst possible scenario for Huddersfield. They may well be able to rally and get themselves into the top 3. At the moment, you said they're going to be in the £1 million game with the best of the Championship teams. So the worst scenario for Huddersfield is they're going to play a one-off match against a team that's worse than them. That's the worst that can possibly happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's been any reason to start slashing the rifts.
But is that a reason to be worried if you're as the 23rd most successful
I wouldn't
coach
get
of
worried.
Huddersfield?
Why do you worry?
I can't agree, Rod, to be honest with you, but...
Someone's going to be in it.
Yeah, someone's going to be in it, and I reckon it is going to be Huddersfield, because they've brought in a coach here now who doesn't know his best team, he doesn't know his best players, and quite clearly he's saying he needs to educate these players. Well, unfortunately, it's not a pre-season, Rick. It's not a pre-season. They're in a mini competition here for the Super League survival.
I don't think Rick Stone probably understood what the Super 8s were
well, he
about.
doesn't. And to be honest with you, I think Huddersfield have made a mistake by bringing this Australian in, because Chris Foreman, he knows exactly what the championship's all about, and he knows the Huddersfield players. Andy Kelly, we know, has been out to Australia, but he's back now, so he could have taken on for the last 6 games, and they all understand that. I reckon the players in that dressing room would have preferred it if Chris Foreman and Andy Kelly would have been the coaching staff, because this Rick Stone is the points what he's making out is that he's got to educate his players. Well, I think we can remember the ex-Prime Minister saying education, education, education. It's quite simple. You haven't got time, Rick, to educate these players how to catch, pass, tackle and support. You're in dire straits, and if they don't start playing, okay, Rad, I know they've got Huddersfield. Batley won't be easy next week going down that hill or playing up that hill and whatever, and then maybe leave from there. I reckon Huddersfield are in big trouble, and I think they've made a mistake by bringing an Australian in who doesn't understand this competition, what they're in.
And the thing against Salford, I mean, all right, Rod says it's another Super League club, and fair enough, but the thing was they were very second best against Salford, and they made a lot of mistakes, which against a Championship club they would have been punished for.
Yeah, they are, but they've got a chance against Featherstone on Sunday. Obviously, Featherstone coming off the big defeat by Leeds, they've got a chance on Sunday to lay a marker down, and then they play all the Championship clubs.
Exactly.
And if they get 4 wins,
Even if they lost to Leeds, right? If they could knock off London, Batley and Featherstone, 2 of which are part-time teams, that'll be enough to get them to 5th. But then they'd lose ground advantage for the £1 million game. But at least,
any Super League club would not want to go to Leeds. If Lee finished 4th,
I think
you would not want to be going to Leeds.
There's a big fixture. There's a big Super 8 qualifiers fixture this Saturday, and that's Lee v Salford. That is a yardstick to find out where Lee are.
Which they lost last time, didn't they?
Which they lost. And Lee at the weekend beat London, but they were well ahead in that game, and London roared back at them very late in that game. They won 34-30, but if Lee lost that game, I think the other Super League sides would start to lick the lips and think, no, we can beat them.
There was a bit of shades of last year, wasn't there?
Exactly,
when they were miles ahead against Hull KR. Miles ahead.
But if Lee
was finished, wasn't it?
But if Lee beat Salford, I think it's really game on in that qualifiers. That's why I think the qualifiers is more interesting than the Super 8s. You know, we talked about in the first part about criticising the Super 8 system. I quite like the qualifiers system and what it can throw up potentially.
Well, Lee have got a chance now because Lee's wage bill is pretty similar, not far off teams at the bottom of the Super League now. We all know there's
plenty of ex-Salford players in that side.
There's a link between the amount you spend on players' wages and the quality of the players you get. We know that, we get that. So Lee are now much closer in terms of their wage bill to those teams at the bottom. I think they've got much more chance than they had last year.
Well, they're not. They had the distraction last year.
Spending more.
They had the distraction last year of the Challenge Cup. They had that great run, a huge expectancy on them, and they kind of let themselves down. But there isn't that level of expectancy this year, and I think Lee could. But I say Saturday's game is real key.
They've got some real brains behind as well. I mean, Paul Cook, I think, is a really inspiring appointment there. He's obviously making a mark. And if it is Huddersfield, if it's Lee Huddersfield, Kieran Purtell is going to be involved on the Lee side. So,
is he ever? And also, Purtell knows all the Huddersfield very, very well in the sale. He knows them. It sounds as though better than Rick Stone, to be honest with you there, but Huddersfield, they're in big trouble. They are in big trouble. Whether it's a dressing room as well, whether they've not taken to this new coach or whatever, but I reckon
they've lost one match, man.
Rod, I'm telling you, Huddersfield are in big trouble.
To be fair,
in big trouble.
To be fair, the noises coming out of the Huddersfield dressing room is that they've got a lot of respect for the new coach that's coming.
Well, they will do.
Yeah,
they will do.
Yeah.
But
so far he's lost 3. So they badly need to beat Featherstone on Sunday and win that game win that game well to then start to kick on. But I say the whole dynamic of that qualifiers changes if Lee beats Salford. Then it becomes very, very interesting. The thing about Huddersfield as well, you asked at the start of the second part there, Dave, but what about Huddersfield? My worry with Huddersfield is they're so dependent on Ken Davies' money. They're so dependent. If Ken Davey, who's been fantastic for Huddersfield, what a brilliant investor, and not just investor, he's so keen on the team and he's just part of that club. And if Ken Davey decided at some point, and he's in entitled to maybe walk away. Where does that leave Huddersfield? And you know, it's going to be, if Huddersfield did go down into the Championship, you know, that's a real test of his loyalty at the same time.
And you know, looking at the game as a whole, and Huddersfield fans will hate me for saying this, but the game as a whole, if Huddersfield were to be replaced by a league in Super League, would that necessarily be a bad thing for Super League?
Just what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
And
if you want promotion and relegation, you can't then argue about who gets promoted and who gets relegated, can you? You
can't
can't
feel
pick
sorry
and
for them.
choose.
Exactly, you can't
It's
feel
just hard
sorry
luck. You
for
weren't
them.
good enough, you got relegated.
Surely the system was
Absolutely.
about
You know,
was
of course it is.
enshrining the principle of promotion and relegation. So if a club comes up, and if that's Lee and Huddersfield came down, for instance,
Tough.
then tough. That's
Yeah.
the way. That's the
Yeah.
way. That's sport.
Yeah, it would reinvigorate things, wouldn't it? If we did get a new name in, not necessarily at the expense of Huddersfield, but a new name in
It's
Super
going to come
League.
down, because of the every child wins a prize philosophy.
Yeah.
They want the last game to be the most important, hence 4th v 5th. So everything about these qualifiers is then channeling into 4th versus 5th,
Yeah.
isn't it? That becomes the
And
game.
what
all
Huddersfield-
the other games you play.
In other words,
the 28 you play before that.
Yeah.
Is it 28?
23.
No, in this
Yeah.
qualifiers.
30.
Yeah.
No, there's-
30.
No, in
23 plus
this competition, there's 28 games are played.
Right.
There's 7 rounds of matches and 4 matches in each one. So 28 games in the middle 8.
Ah, right.
28
Okay,
games in the
yeah.
middle 8. Plus 1. Well, the plus 1 is the 1.
Yeah.
The other 28 is a bit of like, you know, jockeying for position, sort of getting yourself on the starting grid, and then the 1 is the 1.
Can you do that with a double 14?
Yes.
You can do that with a finish with a double 14.
Yeah.
Good.
You know, that's what it boils down to, isn't it? The one game, which
That's
at the
all it
moment,
is.
if you went and did a straw poll, most people would say Huddersfield against Leeds. Wouldn't they? That's what most people would say 4th v 5th is likely to be at this stage.
At this stage, yeah, after
Right.
the first weekend.
You know,
after the first weekend.
but things can change over 6 matches. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just,
yeah.
But it's in their hands, isn't it? You know, it's in Huddersfield's hands. It's not out of their hands. They've lost one game. They go and beat 4 Championship clubs. They're looking quite good at that stage.
can't they beat Hull and Leeds?
They possibly could.
Possibly
They could finish top of the table.
They've beaten Leeds, haven't they?
But what we're
Couple of
saying is
times
the signs are not great after the first weekend. You know, Hull KR might have been in there as well if they'd not won as
The important
healthily
factor
as they
for
did
Huddersfield
against
there
Bath.
is simple. The coach doesn't know his players, doesn't know his formula. Defensively, he said mentally they're weak. So he's got huge problems. He's only got 6 games to turn it around. Only 6 games to turn it around.
If Huddersfield have got problems, what about Bradford? And let's just briefly surf this tacky surface.
It's a shambles. It's an
Unbelievable.
absolute. I think that's only one word for it, Dave. It's a shambles. It is, and I think the chairman, with what he said, building up to last week, and obviously the players haven't been paid. I think he's kidding them speckies. I think he's absolutely kidding them spectators. He's not being honest with them. The place is an absolute shambles. And one thing for sure here now, the Bradford Bulls, they are not a big rugby league club anymore.
This is one of your favourite. I follow you on Twitter. This is one of your favourite subjects, this, isn't it?
Look, I've said this since March 2012. March 2012 is when they first said that they were in serious financial difficulty. They'd sold the ground to the Rugby League in January 2012. And Peter Hood, the chairman, said we need £500,000, you know, by yesterday, otherwise that's the end.
Otherwise we're going to lose our...
Which was a lie.
Right.
It was a lie. Well, they did, but
it got them out of trouble.
It didn't go where it should have gone.
The supporters of Bradford Bulls and other Rugby League supporters and players and ex-players produced one of the most amazing feats to raise £500,000 in 10 days.
Yeah.
It's absolutely staggering.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was a few outliers, like me and Brian Carney, one or two others, said, do not give that money to Bradford Bulls. Keep the £500,000 and use it for leverage. But they decided to give it to Bradford Bulls. They gave it to the people that got them into debt in the first place. And they gave it without conditions. And I just hold my head in my hands now thinking about it. Why did they do that? They did it out of love and loyalty.
Yeah.
And that's a great trait to have as a human being, to have love and loyalty. But in this instance, it was folly.
Yeah.
Because they gave it disappeared down a black hole, and the Bradford fans lost that collateral they had. They should have said, or waited till it went bust and took the club and said, we've got £500,000 to start with and run it as a supporters trust, or said, we'll give you this £500,000, but we want 3 seats on the board.
Yeah.
And if you either like it or lump it, and we're not giving it you until we get that deal. And they've had chance after chance after chance for fans to take over.
And
they either don't want to, or they can't organise themselves. They're one or the other. I don't know. But for me,
and I say as well, Rod, you know,
that's what they should
the
do.
Bradford Bulls fans, they can't be blamed for this because they've been turning
Of
up
course
and
they
turning up.
can.
You know, they
Why
can't
should
keep
they
blaming
be
the Bradford
blamed?
Bulls fans, and they keep asking them to come to the well. You know, we need, drink some more water, keep coming in. And like I read a quote last week from the chairman, Mark Green, saying, well, listen, we need more money at the club. Don't go to the local pubs. Come to the stadium and drink our beer. Well, they're not going to do that because the prices are ridiculous, all this sort of thing. The atmosphere is very, very poor. He's got a lot to look at himself and just don't keep asking the spectators for more money because they haven't got it.
But
I just think they should go down to the bottom. I honestly think the best thing that can happen to Bradford Bulls now is to clear the decks, start back like Glasgow Rangers have to do in Scottish football, bottom division with a fan-owned club, and just crack on from the bottom. They'd romp through the
well, they did it before, didn't they? When
they have done it before. But my
otherwise, you just carry on.
The other thing with
carry
Bradford this year, we might not be having this discussion if Bradford had actually got into the qualifiers, and they didn't get out of the qualifiers because they weren't good enough on the pitch.
Exactly.
And if you look at that, look at the amount of money they spent. By all accounts, their wage bill was about £1.3 million. That's not too far off.
Finish.
They paid for a top four finish and get one.
They've got 43 players on the books.
Yeah.
43 players on the books.
I'll tell you what, we shouldn't underestimate that. You shouldn't underestimate how much luck plays in sport, because if you remember last season, they were in that £1 million game. And not only were they in it, they were literally in it. In the last couple of minutes, they had a penalty, didn't they? They were that away from beating Wakefield. Right? And had they beaten Wakefield and got promoted, everything changes.
Yeah.
They get the big central funding, they're back in the Super League, and maybe they push on. They lost that game narrowly, and that then spirals down and down again. And you're only talking in sport between winning and losing, as we all know. And if they'd won that game, there'd been a very, very different discussion going on about Bradford Bulls now. They didn't win it, and this is what's happened.
It's really sad because I mean they were the archetypal Super League club, weren't they? You know, when clubs like Leeds, let's not forget, at the start of Super League, didn't really adopt this whole summer attitude.
From the very start. I mean, to be fair, they took a bit of a template from Keighley Cougars, the Keighley Cougars days, but they took it and then they ran with it. And the late great Peter Deakin was the architect of that. They brought in the Bull, they brought in Brian Smith, they brought in kids like Robbie Paul over from New Zealand.
They'd already brought him. Peter Fox was the coach.
Peter Fox. Yeah, but you know what I mean. There's lots of great players. You know, it all came together, and in those early days, it was tough for Bradford at start. They didn't really win much. They were in that great 1996 Challenge Cup final. Then they won a few, and then suddenly they're just winning everything.
That's that. Yeah, I mean that again. You talk about
10 years ago, they won the World Club Challenge.
They won the Challenge Cup. Oh, sorry, they got to the Challenge Cup final and lost, which is the most lucrative way of doing it, isn't it? We got to the Challenge Cup final and lost. And then on the back of that, had a league game the week after. It was the first year where that momentum carried on. Very often, well, every time before that you won the Challenge Cup, it was a close season, wasn't it? Thereafter, so they had that momentum.
They had that momentum, you know, and they are, you know, the greatest kind of story to come out of Super League.
And they won the last first past the post league, didn't they?
They won
20
it
games on the trot.
1997. They won
20 games on the trot at the start of the season.
Won the title,
including London.
Won the title at Sheffield Eagles that year. But you know that's 19 years ago. But they're a fantastic advert for Super League, and now they're just kind of like. Nobody wants to go there.
They need a character, don't they? They need an individual to go in there and galvanise. I mean, you're talking about the fans. The reason the fans didn't invest that $500,000 because
they did invest in the game.
Because they didn't buy the club because there wasn't somebody who led. Who went in and said, right.
What bigger figurehead did they want? They had Robbie Paul. Robbie Paul's been the CEO over the last 3 regimes, I think it is. At the moment, they just look like something that's staggering on and on and on until it falls over.
I think they're a club that have lived on their reputation. I mean, Gary mentioned, they still feel they're a big club. I think there's a slight case of entitlement there, and it isn't. It just isn't anymore.
If they change the owner, this is how I would describe it. Shuffle the pack, the ownership deck, shuffle, and we'll deal the top card off it. Bang. Now you might get the ace of clubs like Simon Moran, or you might get the King of Hearts like Paul Caddick, but you might get the 3 of clubs or the 2 of diamonds.
Who's that? Go on, no names.
I mean, but you just don't know, do you? There's a random element, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you could get someone that doesn't have any money or can't put any in.
But I tell you what, we've talked about all the success what the Bulls have had. You know, over the Super League period. Come 2016, it's simple. They're in absolute shambles.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
And where's the way forward for them? I ain't got the answer for that one, but at this moment in time, they are an absolute shambles, and they are not a big rugby league club anymore.
No. They might. The question is, do you gamble? Do you go again next season? Yeah, Mr. Green said they're going to stay full time. I don't know if there's going to be a clear out of players. They're going to bring new players in. It's difficult to get the ones out that you've got. If you've got players on big wages,
there's about 7 players already gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of them already.
There's about 7, and the quality players.
Yeah, that's the quality. So if you've got players on big wages that other clubs don't want, you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, but Rod, at the end of the day, if you haven't got that quality, what they've already got, okay, they've fallen short this year. Yeah. But if you're totally lacking that quality, I still think they're never going to get back to where they want to. They should still be
able to get in the top 4 again next year. They'll pay for a top 4 finish.
They should have been in the top 4 this year.
They were 1 game off, weren't they? I mean, they pay for a top 4 finish with their wage bill. They should finish in the top 4 next year. That doesn't mean anything though in terms of getting back into the Super League.
No.
It gives you a chance. It buys you a raffle ticket, or it buys you a spin on the roulette wheel, but it's not necessarily going to come.
Well, I've seen them quite a bit this year at the Bulls, and quite simple. They've needed a quality number 7 all year. When they decide, oh no, don't quality what we've got, then they're bringing Dane Chisholm for the last 3 or 4 games, and it's far too late.
Yeah.
Far too late. So again, the recruitment, you've got a question of recruitment of the quality what's being required.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. 40 odd players this
43
season.
players on the books.
They've had perfectly good coaches that they've got rid of.
Yeah.
They sacked Francis Cummins, remember? Absolute act of complete.
And he did absolutely nothing wrong.
Madness.
Absolutely
James Lowe's in the end walked out. Perfectly.
Carl Allison, the assistant coach from there. And it's a shambles.
Yeah.
Absolute shambles.
And on that bombshell, we finish this second part of Back Chat. We're back for more shambles in the third part here from the Ark at Headingley in just a few moments' time. Welcome back to the third, and you'll be very relieved to know, final part of this week's Back Chat from the Ark in Headingley. We're going to do something new this week in the third part. We normally talk about the NRL. We'll still talk a little bit about the NRL, but it's your chance to take part as well. You might have seen the Twitter account, RL Back Chat. Well, you can send your questions every week to that particular account, and we will raise your points with our esteemed panel here, which is Garry Schofield, Chris Irvine and Rod Studd. So straight on to the Twitter questions. Lee Goodall tweets to ask, who will win the Man of Steel? Garry Schofield.
Gareth Ellis.
Gareth Ellis.
Simple.
Yeah.
Gareth Ellis, outstanding, the leader. Just everything what you want from a Man of Steel, and Hull are in the position because of Gareth Ellis. Okay, he's got another 60 guys around him, but he's certainly the warrior in that side. Gareth Ellis.
What about Danny Houghton? Danny Houghton, he's had an outstanding season as well.
He's okay. He does his job, but he's the leader. He's Gareth Ellis. Simple.
Yeah.
I've got to agree with Gary. I think that Ellis has been absolutely outstanding, and I think he epitomises that. He is the Man of Steel, really. I think Houghton is a good shout, and maybe even Mark Sneed, because Houghton is he's so consistent. He really is.
Well, he's going to be at the dinner anyway, isn't he? Because he books his table every year.
Well, he puts 1,000 tackles in every year.
Yeah.
You know, he's incredible. By the shout, possibly Denny Solomona at Castleford. I mean, that just prolific scoring. But no, I think the Man of Steel. At this stage, look, there's still some way to go in this. You know, it's a bit like the Dally M down under. You know, that's just gone behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to play for. But at this stage, if I had a vote, it would be Gareth Ellis.
Don't be boring and agree with those two.
Well, bookmakers make Gareth Ellis 2-1 favourite.
Do they?
Does that help you at all?
No. Who else?
Jamie Shaw is quite short in the betting, but for I backed Ben Curry at the start of the season at 40-1, but and he's been good, but he's obviously not going to win. But for me, the best player in the competition, and sometimes he looks so far ahead of the competition that it's just not funny, is Chris Sandow.
Oh, I can agree with you on that.
The performance he put in at Wigan when he was actually man of the match, even though he'd been on the field for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just. I mean, it was just incredible, wasn't it? The range of passing and the kick, and it's just a joy to watch. So
had he not had that injury, I think he'd been nailed on.
Yeah, and he hasn't quite been as good, has he, since then? But for me, if he could play like that every week, he'd be so far ahead. It would be ridiculous.
He's great, Chris Sandow. But I mean, I'd maybe just go waxing lyrical about the past. Somebody who didn't win Man of Steel. Is Chris Sandow better than Lee Breers? Lee Breers, to me, he was a joy to watch.
It's year on year.
Yeah,
I don't think Kieran Cunningham ever won.
No, he didn't.
Kevin Sinfield never did.
Kevin
Sinfield never did. No, but I'll agree with that with Sandow. But he's just a bit inconsistent. Yeah. You looked at last week's game in the second half. He just went missing. You know, when Gidley needed a bit of pressure taken off himself, he went missing. Did Sandow?
It's going to depend on what the outcome of matches, though, isn't it? Warrington versus Hull. So if Hull win, Gareth Ellis is immediately, sort of lifting the cup, and it's whole win at Wembley, and all those kind of emotional things.
That's not supposed to enter the thinking of the panel. It's not though, is it?
No, it's
really?
a players' vote and then a panel. So, but if Warrington win and Sandow happens to be the win the lads Todd, and then Warrington are in the grand final and the Man of Steel week and Hull aren't, and you're trying to second guess what will happen.
So I guess really then we put it down to 2 players, Gareth Ellis and Chris Sandow.
What about coach of the year? This wasn't asked, but what about coach of the year?
It's Chris Chester for mine. Yeah. Simple as that. Wakefield semi-final Challenge Cup in the top 8, no pressure whatsoever.
But if they flake away,
no, Dave. He's the job what he did after taking over from Brian Smith, the job what he's done by the way that his team has played, he's got the best out of his players. The type of rugby league, what he's done there, it's Chris Chester. He's done a great job. Simple as that.
It's a coach's vote, isn't it? This, I think.
It's a vote. I mean, for me,
it'd be Radford, wouldn't it?
Radford to me, because look, it's not that. And they're playing again this weekend at Widnes Hull. I mean, that was where allegedly he got locked out.
It wasn't allegedly, he was.
He was locked out in the dressing room by the players, who then said, "Look, it's incumbent on us to actually perform here." All the coaching staff were locked out that night, but he's been tremendous. I mean, nobody would have forecast Hull where they are. And the thing what I've liked what he's done
you say
there.
Nobody would have thought.
I don't know. I just think
they massively overachieved.
Oh no!
Hull were 33-1 to win the grand final at the start of the season.
Hull have underachieved for years, and they look finally now like they might be about to achieve.
They finished bottom of the Super 8s, didn't they?
They were in that position.
7th or 8th.
He's a lad made in Hull, and you look at people like Scott Taylor. He's put these local lads in. Everybody seems to have bought into that kind of. That
I tell you what, we talked about recruitment. You see, Hull's we were talking about Bradford's recruitment being very poor.
Yeah.
Hull's recruitment has been absolutely magnificent. They've gone in and
for once.
For once, but they've got it right. They've brought in all these players, and it's no good. Sean Wayne saying, "Oh, they've got all these players from the NRL." Well, good luck to them. They went out and found the players.
It's also a settling in period as well. I mean, Mark Seed last year wasn't the player that he is this year, and Gareth Ellis is having his best season since he's been back at Hull. So there's
I just think they brought some, Timavave and these Talanoa and all these. I think they've brought in some really good.
And another thing, shout.
Can we move on? I
was just to say Mark Minicello. Because I think really, and he might be an outside bet for Man of Steel, but Mark Minicello for me, what a great player.
He's good. Right, Dave Roberts tweets to ask. You see, I'm down with the kids here. Tweets to ask: do you think Scotland in the Four Nations is a waste of time? They rarely play in Scotland, and there's no real club in Scotland. I know what you're going to say, so I'm going to ask you because I don't know what you're going to say.
Who do you want in it? By definition, there has to be 4 nations in the 4 nations. Otherwise, you go back to the Tri-Nations. You go back to that if you want.
Yeah.
Go back to the Tri-Nations.
But what about Scotland? Is it worth persevering with Scotland?
Well, you're going to get Gary Schofield on saying that there aren't any Scottish players and they're not born and bred in Scotland. They haven't got Scottish mothers and fathers, and they haven't got the saltire tattooed on every part of their anatomy. But if you want the international game to spread beyond 3 teams. You've got to let them play.
But if you want the international game to spread, surely Scotland should be playing in Scotland and not at Workington and Hull KR.
Well,
but that's
where do you want them to play? They're not going to sell out Hampden Park, are they?
Well, they're not going to sell out Hull KR.
I went to a game in Glasgow when they played against Ireland. That was at the Athletics Stadium.
Yeah.
They could have played there, but I mean. I don't know. Is it a big issue?
Remember a game your mate played in? Brian Carney played in at Hearts Ground.
Yes.
When we won 2 games on the road.
Tynecastle.
Yeah, but I think Rod's right. If we want an international game, there is an error contrivance. We know that. Look at England's opponents in the World Cup, Lebanon. They're just a bunch of Sydney-siders, aren't they? But they're going to represent Lebanon. Okay, famously, Danny Bruff's qualification, as he jokes himself, he's walked his dog in Kilmarnock once. But and Lewis Tierney is going to come in. He's found a Scottish grandparent in Hunslet.
His dad's from Belial, from where I'm from, Jason. He's from Belial. He's about as much Scottish as me.
But good luck to them. Look, Scotland in the World Cup were a great story. They got to the quarterfinals, and they were a great story. Good luck to them. Are the Scots any more Scottish than the Welsh side?
No, international sport has changed completely. International sport in all sports, forget rugby league, everything, the Olympics, everything. The Qatari handball team just imported all the best handball players and paid them to live in Qatar for the qualifying period to go and play for Qatar.
That was our next tweet. Somebody's asking about the Qatari handball team.
But what I'm saying is, international sport, the coach now gets the best players he can utilising the qualification system. Yeah. And that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, you're going to have to lump it.
But I'm with all of that. I get all
that's
that.
It.
But
so
should Scotland be playing in Scotland?
All right.
I think we should. I think we should.
Probably,
yes. And I've watched Scotland in the past. I mean, I remember a game in Glasgow some years ago. Yeah, there's no good playing in Cumbria in that respect. But that's an RFL decision, isn't it? They've made that decision.
Right. Let's move on. Gary Tetlow tweets to ask, do you ever think that Rugby League will shake off its parochial, small-town outlook? Gary Schofield.
No, it won't. It's simple. When an M62 corridor game. Simple as that. Simple. No.
And when Toronto come in, when Toronto and Toulouse and Catalan are all in the Super League, 3 years' time.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to lose that tag, and that's what we are. And we know what Toronto are going to do. They know the best players are going to hammer that from there. But no, we're not going to get rid of that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
We're not, Dave.
I think if Gary had watched the first, Gary Tetlow had watched the first two parts of this programme, he'd probably know what the answer to the question.
I think if Gary Tetlow had watched the first two parts, he won't still be watching.
That's right. We're hidebound by that. We've spent 121 years trying to break the shackles of this parochialism now, this M62 corridor. Wasn't 121 years ago, but it is hard. And it's not been helped by the fact that the funding that we had from Sport England has been withdrawn. I could see a few years ago we were really starting to find players in London and things like that. You look around the league, you look at the Kieran Dixons and the Griffin brothers and all these people who came from Louis McCarthy Scarborough, who came from that London thing. We're not finding those players anymore, and that worries me. So at the moment we're not doing enough to break out. Good luck to Toronto. That's brilliant, but within our own country we're just not doing enough.
We had a special with Eric Perez on the other week, who's the man behind Toronto, who said that you look at the National Hockey League in Canada, and they had 6 teams, and for so many decades were playing with the same 6 teams, part-time players, blah blah. When they actually expanded, that's when it became a multi-million-pound multinational sport. So is Rugby League taking the right step in shaking off this small town outlook?
Doesn't bother me in the slightest. I couldn't care less. Really, I really couldn't care less. I enjoy watching Rugby League. I live somewhere near the M62, and if people who don't live near the M62 don't like watching Rugby League, good luck. I mean, loads of people enjoy fishing. I think it's still ditch water, but I don't enjoy that. I mean, people enjoy what they enjoy, each to their own. Live and let live. I mean, I love watching Rugby League, but if people who live outside the M62 don't, well, I don't think it's. I think we sometimes worry too much about it.
But isn't there a danger that if we remain
paranoid about it?
I think what the point of this is that if we remain with this small town, small outlook mentality, that the game shrinks and shrinks, and as much as you love it, it actually stops becoming.
Well, it's struggled on for 121 years, Dave, hasn't it?
It has as well, but also we look at talking about the M62 corridor. We're good to go further up to Cumbria. Unfortunately, professional Rugby League is dying a death because when you look at Whitehaven, you look at Cumbria, they really haven't. And I would say they're backing what should have happened from the RFL from a point of view. They missed the boat, didn't they, years ago? They should have merged, whether they would have liked it or not. Okay, some fans may have not gone, forever again, but we would have drawn a new audience up in Cumbria because they would have seen quality week in and week out. But we're talking about Cumbria, a huge hotbed of Rugby League, and we're seeing the death of it.
Yeah, more sheep than people. Anyway, let's move on. Giving It Legs has tweeted in to say, is it time, and apologies to Cumbria, favourite county in the world, is it time to bin the Challenge Cup, add a Super League Sevens festival to May, and the May bank holiday, and move the Magic Weekend to August for a Super 8s?
Not a chance. Not a chance. The Challenge Cup is still the biggest Rugby League competition in the world. Everybody wants to be part of it. Everybody wants to be at Wembley, from supporters, from directors, from coaches and players. It's quite simple. The Challenge Cup is the biggest and best competition the Rugby League has to offer on its calendar. Okay, if everybody rates it as the biggest competition in the world, and everybody wants to get to Wembley, why do Wigan fans only sell 1,600 tickets for a semi-final?
He meant the final.
Tell you what, they sell more tickets to the semi-final than they would do to a Sevens competition. I'm sorry.
Why?
Sevens, nines, to me, it's just a dilution of what is a great sport. I don't want to see, personally, I don't want to see Sevens. If I thought Sevens competition was coming at the expense of the Challenge Cup, I think we can kiss goodbye to everything.
Why don't they bring it into the Magic Weekend?
What,
no, I don't want. I personally,
Seventh Circuit's massive.
Mini Rugby League, I don't really want to see that. I don't want to see that. I don't think it's massive at all. And I think you looked at those Auckland Nines, and Danny Lockwood, a friend of this programme, went down to the Auckland Nines. He said nobody's watching it. Nobody's watching it.
I'll tell you what. Something will have to change with the Magic Weekend, because sooner or later, if they keep running this model long enough, the odd fixture which obviously isn't fair. Talking about Bradford, they've played Leeds 3 times in their version of the Magic Weekend. Sooner or later, someone's going to get relegated because of the odd fixture, and that's going to cause a massive problem. So they need to go back to 11 games at home and 11 away and do something else with the Magic Weekend, or have
What
the
would
Magic
you do?
Weekend.
What would you do?
I'd play 9s or 7s.
But are people really going to buy into that? I mean, this is Marwan Kukash's big plan.
Or play some. Every sport is looking for their version of 2020, some cut down thing. Play 20-minute games then. You've got to do something to have a big trophy lift at the end of the weekend, and there's a check, and thanks very much. At the moment, you play 6 games, and you go around, and it sort of finishes. Just ends, doesn't it? Without a...
Yeah. I'll tell you what I'd have, and we've aired this on the programme before, Challenge Cup quarter-final weekend as the Magic Weekend.
Well,
You've got 8 clubs there, by definition.
You could do that, yeah.
And you maybe even throw in a championship game or something like that as well.
Yeah.
Up there. That'd be fantastic.
I mean, the thing is, the RFL see the Magic Weekend. It's growing. It's successful, and we come back to that old thing: is they don't want to move that away from May. The BBC would like a June Challenge Cup final, but you know that.
Well, that might help in that regard with your Challenge Cup quarter-finals at some point in May.
The RFL do not want to move Wembley away from August. That's been part of the problem with the Challenge Cup. It's it's diminished over the years because I think it's playing the wrong part of the season.
Its final is still, like you said, Scully. The final is still a massive event, but what goes before it doesn't seem to catch
I think
fire,
if you said to the fans of Warrington and Hull, who intend, there should be a good 80,000 crowd at Wembley later this month, right, we're no longer going to have this competition, they'd be up in arms, wouldn't they?
No, they can't get rid of the Challenge Cup. It's madness.
So there you go. That's it. No, we're going to keep the Challenge Cup. Thank you very much for all your tweets, and anybody who wants to tweet in, please do. It's the account RL Backchat. Go on there, send your tweet to that particular account, and we'll hopefully raise your point and question in weeks to come. Right, let's just remind ourselves of what's still to come on Premier Sports over this weekend, a weekend packed with NRL action. We start Friday the 12th. So Friday the 12th of August, a glorious 12th, Brisbane Broncos against the Parramatta Eels, 2 seasons that seem to be running out of power. But anyway, that should be a good game at the Suncorp Stadium. Saturday, August the 13th, the Tigers against the Titans at Campbelltown. New Zealand Warriors against the Rabbitohs, and the Dragons against the Sharks at Jubilee Oval. More to come on Sunday, August the 14th, the Knights against the Panthers, and the Roosters against the Cowboys. And then finally on Monday morning, you can see the Canberra Raiders against the Melbourne Storm. So all those matches to come, and don't forget you can check all this and more at www.premiersports, don't forget the S.tv, www.premiersports.tv. That's as far as we go this week for Backchat. A very big thanks to Garry Schofield, to Chris Irvine, and to Rod Studd as well for joining us, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Goodbye.